welcome everybody to another edition of Bet What Happens Live on this wild card weekend. I am your host, Nick Giffen, and joining me this time, my touchdown show partner in crime, Gilles Gallant. Gilles, what do you think so far of this first half as we are at the 2-minute warning?
Yeah, it's a very Nathan Peterman-esque performance by Trevor Lawrence here. We're seeing 4 interceptions in the first half, 3 of them in the first quarter. It has been brutal to watch, especially if you bet on the Jaguars.
Definitely, but you know what's not been brutal, Gilles? The fact that bet365 is sponsoring this show. We want to make sure to shout them out for sponsoring the show for the whole wild card weekend.
Absolutely.
And continued throughout the playoffs. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this show. So thank you to bet365. And Gilles, I think we're going to have to start diving into some bets as we are here at this 2-minute warning. So where are you looking at maybe to start?
So the first couple of things that I'm looking at, Nick, obviously we talked about this during the touchdown show about how we didn't love Travis Etienne in this matchup, especially with his touchdown odds. And his live rush yards right now is hovering around 56.5. I'm kind of liking the under in this spot because I'm not sure if the Jaguars are going to run the ball again in the second half. They'd be silly to, but at the same time, can you really trust Trevor Lawrence right now with the ball in his hand the way he's turning it over? So looking at the under right now for Travis Etienne, another thing that I was looking at, and again, we kind of talked about this, and the value might not be there, but it just feels like it may happen, and that is a Justin Herbert interception because so far, he may not throw him a bunch in the second half, but he's had 4 passes that have been tipped by the defense of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's just kind of where we're at right now. And I'm seeing right now the live odds for an interception at around plus 260.
Yeah, so we are showing Justin Herbert about plus 400 fair value, and that's simply because it looks like he's not going to throw a ton. And, it's one of those situations where you're right. Maybe what we're seeing overrides what the numbers say, and that's because, with Justin Herbert, there's a very good chance he's just not passing a whole lot in the second half. So if he is passing a lot, I like the play. If he's not passing, then it's probably a pass on the passing interceptions. So, I think that's just what we're going to have to kind of deal with at this point is, how do we separate what the model says from what our eyes are seeing?
Right.
And I think another thing that our eyes are seeing is we're looking right now at the screen. It's a 27-0 blowout. So when blowouts happen, often we move to the backups, right?
That's right.
And so, Gilles, I think you were looking at maybe a backup player to, hit one of your favorite bets, an anytime touchdown.
Well, you're right. And, Austin Eckler has already got a lot of work so far in this game, scored 2 touchdowns. But his backup, Joshua Kelly, has around 6 carries right now and is likely going to get a lot of second half work. Seeing his anytime touchdown odds hovering around plus 1,100, plus 1,200 right now, Nick, I think we might have to take a swing on that.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to keep an eye on that, on what his live anytime touchdown odds are. Gilles, if you happen to see those, let me know because, clicking around, sometimes it's hard to find when you're trying to search live. But I do like the fact that we could maybe look at Joshua Kelly. We also could look at Donald Parham. He's been very active. And his tight end counterpart, Gerald Everett, already has a touchdown. So maybe they use Parham even more than they already have. I mean, Parham already has 4 targets. And if we look just in terms of routes run, Everett has run 13 routes and Parham has run 9 routes. Wow. I bet we could see that gap close in the second half if this continues to be a blowout throughout maybe the later part of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So Joshua Kelly and Parham are 2 guys I would really look at the anytime touchdown market as we hit halftime and odds reopen and kind of settle in to where we think they are going to be for the bulk of the halftime. So now Jacksonville is moving the ball right now. This has been the best drive of the game so far for them. Trevor Lawrence has 16 passing yards on this drive, which is 50% more than he had just a few minutes ago. So that means 51 yards right now for Trevor Lawrence, and we're showing his full game projection at right around a little under 230. Now it's gonna depend because the clock is ticking, and so I'm just gonna update my model for halftime once we reach halftime. But it's looking like, we're in this situation where Trevor Lawrence is not gonna get a whole lot of passing yards. And the reason, you would think, well, yeah, they're gonna throw a lot, Jacksonville, because they're trying to come back into the game. But there's every real chance that this game opens up even more. And at that point, do you pull Lawrence if it's a 35-point blowout, or do they just stop throwing and wave the white flag? So it's one of those situations where the model realizes that this is so out of hand that there could be value on Trevor Lawrence under, despite the fact that it seems like he should be throwing the whole rest of the game.
Yeah, I feel like Lawrence needs to stay in for the entire game. It doesn't matter if you're down 40-0. Take your medicine. This is your first playoff game. Eat that up, and then we can bet on more interception props potentially.
Absolutely. So right now, and we talked about this on the touchdown show, you were fading the Joneses. Right now, Zay Jones, 12 receiving yards. Marvin Jones, 12 receiving yards. So pretty good call there so far for that first half on fading the Jones on the anytime touchdown market. We'll have to see what happens. So Travis Etienne is up to 37 rushing yards. We'll have to see where that number is come halftime and where it settles in before we decide to take an over or an under position. I know you're eyeing the under here.
Yeah,
but we'll have to see where that settles in. If we think, especially if they could pull starters, if they get down so much, maybe they give JaMychal Hasty some more work here in the second half if they're down by 30 plus at some point in the second half. So again, opportunity for unders on some of these starters, I think.
Yeah, definitely with Hasty and maybe even Snoop Connor if he was able to get a couple carries as well. I also think that we should be looking at touchdown odds for, I don't want to say it, but again, I'm actually maybe flipping. If Travis Etienne is up to maybe like plus 150 to plus 200, maybe we want to consider him because he has been being used a lot in the passing game as well, and you can see some of those short slant passes. We're seeing some of that happen right now. So I think that's the one thing, is that I don't really want to flip completely on Etienne, but I definitely am considering the under on his rushing yard prop.
Yeah. So we are. Let's see, 28 seconds left in the half, 27 seconds left in the half here. So we're just going to have to see how Jacksonville plays this out. Are they going to, settle for a field goal to make it potentially a 24-point game, which would be
let's see
a
here.
3-score game?
What's coming? Bang. Evan Ingram.
And it is Evan Ingram with the anytime touchdown for Jacksonville. So they've now closed the gap to 27-7. And
it's almost like funny though, because like a first half touchdown feels like a garbage time touchdown in this game.
It really does. It already feels like a garbage time touchdown. So I'm going to update the model here with the Chargers now ahead by only 20 points. And I want to see what Bet365 has for the live market. So the money line, the Chargers are minus 2,000. And the Jaguars are plus 1075. So
you're feeling
what
lucky.
That equates to is right now the betting market is giving the Chargers a 92% chance to win this game and just an 8% chance for Jacksonville. So 20-point lead, 92% likely for the Chargers to win this game. That's kind of where we stand. And what that's doing in my model is it's saying the Chargers are going to be running about 13% more than they would in their pregame pass-run ratio splits. So they're going to be running about 13% more, whereas the Chargers are going to be running or passing about 5% more. So, the Jaguars are going to be passing about 5% more. And what we're seeing here is the Chargers are going to run a lot more. But while the Jaguars are going to pass a little bit more, it's not a lot more. It's not that 13, 15%. It's just 5%. So with that 5%, it would seem, like we said, that like the Jaguars would pass a lot, but it's maybe not going to be as much more as we think. So I think they're going to be undervalued in this Jaguars passing game. We'll see where the player props settle in. But I think I'm personally going to be looking at unders in this Jaguars passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could even double down more with kind of our buys and sells and with the selling of Zay Jones and Marvin Jones. Potentially you want to be, I will say I again, I keep flipping, but it's the Etienne part where I feel like if they keep him playing in the second half, just how much he's used in the passing game, those quick screen passes, you're seeing the pass rush actually get to Lawrence quite a bit, especially with the way that those tip passes have happened earlier in the game. So Etienne is probably somebody that I'm going to be looking at here just as soon as we get these props back up in place.
Yeah, and you see the Chargers kneel it down just to close out the half. They will start with the ball in the second half, so that's something else to keep in mind. So we do go into halftime with the LA Chargers leading 27-7 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. So now it's time to make some halftime bets. Gilles, right away, I want to go to those anytime touchdowns. I want to see what we have on Kelly, and I want to see what we have on Parham, because right now, as far as the odds market in our model is saying Joshua Kelly would be a value at anything above plus 700, and it's saying Parham would be a value at anything above plus like 1,600. So I think that probably the model's not going to be right there because his underlying usage has been much higher than we anticipated pregame. But I do think if Kelly is above plus 700, I would like that.
Well, you are in luck because right now Joshua Kelly is at plus 900 to score a touchdown, along with Donald Parham even showing a little bit of value at 18-1.
Very interesting. So why don't we roll with Joshua Kelly? What did you say that number was?
So we have it right now at plus 900 is what I'm tracking.
Plus 900. We can get Joshua Kelly. Let's put a half unit on that. What do you say? Or a quarter unit? What are you feeling?
I would say half on Kelly, quarter on Parham.
Half on Kelly. You're taking half a unit on Kelly at 9-1?
That's right.
And a quarter unit on Parham at 18-1 for an anytime touchdown.
That's right.
There we go. So that's what Gilles is locking in for Bet What Happens Live so far. And we got a whole lot more to go. There's so much more to explore in this game during this halftime session, right? We're going to take you all the way through halftime, and if we find some bets that we might like depending on what happens in the first drive or the second drive of the second half, we'll take you through that as well. So, you know, we talked about the interceptions here. Our model is showing Trevor Lawrence fair value for another interception at around 2-1, and Justin Herbert around plus 450. So I don't think we're showing any projection value. But what are your thoughts around the interceptions right now? Because you did mention those tip passes, but we are also seeing that the Chargers are going to pass about 13% less than the pregame projection.
Yeah, so again, if we were... A 3-score game is still obtainable. Like if the Jags obviously aren't getting the ball first in the second half, the Chargers will. So if the Chargers do go down and put down another touchdown on this defense, then you could see the pass attempts, I think, for Herbert just completely fall off. And that's what would make me concerned, that if we don't see an interception from Herbert on that first drive, we may never see him throw another ball for the rest of the game.
Exactly.
Whereas with Lawrence right now, again, he has 4 at halftime. You know that they're going to have to throw a lot in the second half. I'm not against it. I mean, it's only around like plus 105, plus 110 for Lawrence to throw an interception. But if it's not broke, don't fix it right now. Like, I honestly think we might have to look at that.
Yeah, and I'm very much a stick to the numbers guy. So, you know, I'm not going to personally take that.
No, but it's an eye test kind of thing.
Yeah,
You've just seen how frazzled he has looked so far. Now, mind you, he might be knocking off that rust already, especially with the way that drive came together, with the way that he was able to get it to Ingram. But I'm not sure if that was more Lawrence or if that was the Chargers almost kind of like easing up a little bit.
Exactly. So, model conflicting with the eye test. I'm not going to take it, but if you take it, totally cool. Let's look at some other props. I want to just go through maybe some receiving yardage props. So I'm seeing Zay Jones around 49.5, Marvin Jones around 29.5. So if I plug those into the model, so Zay Jones 49.5, Marvin Jones 29.5, we are showing undervalue on Zay Jones at 49.5. Also, the Chargers are not starting with the ball. Also, we could be in this blowout situation where maybe they aren't even throwing as much as we would tend to think. So I'm going to lock in a bet of Zay Jones under 49.5 receiving yards, and I'm showing about 58% value on that. Right now, Zay Jones just has 17 receiving yards, and he's done that on 4 catches. So these are short catches that he's been getting so far.
So the next question I would ask you then is, Let's go back to Etienne for a second. So right now his over-under line for receiving yards is at 21.5. He has 1 catch for 12 yards. Only 1 target so far in this game. But again, the pass rush from the Chargers seems to be getting to Lawrence. There could be some more potential for dump-off. I'm wanting to know, is there any projection value for maybe looking at an over on Etienne?
On Etienne's over of his rushing yards?
Receiving yards at 21.5.
21.5. So right now, Etienne has 12 receiving yards.
For
so
1
I
catch.
just want to make sure, I want to make sure I have the exact numbers in there. So what was the number on that line there for Etienne's receiving yards, just so I can add it in?
21.5.
21.5. That means we're showing perfectly 50-50 almost on that. So
Flip that coin.
That's good though, right? Because sometimes you want your model to be in line with the market because it means you have a good model. But you still also want to show differences because that's where we're trying to find our edges. But unfortunately there, just in terms of the numbers, we're right at 50-50 on Etienne. Now I will say, if we go over to his rushing yards, which I think this was interesting, so you're talking about taking his under. 58.5 is his live line right now. And we're actually showing over value on that by 68%.
And he has 8 attempts in the first half for 37 yards. So there's been a couple of rushes where he's able to get off, and he's gotten a 12-yard rush here, a 7-yard rush there. Hasn't really gotten negative yardage on any of his rushes so far.
Yeah, so what I think here is, even though we are showing 68% value on the over, this is a situation where I want to wait for that first drive. If Los Angeles moves the ball, I did it again. If you've watched Bet What Happens Live before, you know I still get trapped by San Diego versus Los Angeles. But if Los Angeles moves the ball here and they score, then it becomes, I think Etienne's over becomes worthless because at that point they're not rushing him. If they're trying to kill the game, it might be JaMychal Hasty,
Right.
just if they're waving the white flag. But if Los Angeles does not score, then that means there is still hope for the Jaguars. And if there is still hope for the Jaguars, they can still play a little bit of their normal game. They're still going to pick up the passing, but at least they can mix in those Etienne rushes. So I think I want to wait on the first drive of the second half before I take a position on Etienne, or just no position would be just not bet him. So especially if there's a quick Chargers 3 and out, then I think I would at least consider looking at Etienne's over on his rushing. But if the Chargers go down the field and threaten to score, then I'm just going to pass.
Right. Now, our colleague Sean Kerner, he was on the Austin Eckler over on the rushing yards right now. The live line for Austin Eckler in this game is at 68.5. And he has 8 rushes for 35 yards and 2 touchdowns. Longest rush of the game has been 13 yards. Are we showing any value for maybe looking at Eckler to keep up that pace in the second half?
Yeah, so that's a really good one because right now, that's another line that's almost 50-50.
Right.
We're showing a touch of value on the under, like 54.5% under 68.5 yards, but that's basically filling up the juice there. So there isn't a ton of value on the under here, so I think that's another situation where I would pass. And again, we get to that point where if they do score, if the Chargers do score in this first drive, Eckler might be done for the
that's
day.
what I was going to say, is that it's almost kind of like a mini hedge against the Joshua Kelly bet that we're going to play for, or at least I am, for a half unit. But that being said, that was one of the things, is that if the Chargers call off the dogs and just decide, you know what, we're not going to be playing majority of our starters, like let's say in the fourth quarter, then yeah, we're just going to pass on.
Exactly. So we talked about the Joneses. And
fade the Joneses.
Christian Kirk is a guy I brought up on the touchdown show as a key for the Jaguars. I said he has a wide range of outcomes. He's really good against man defense, and the Chargers play a lot of man defense. But on the flip side, the Chargers are very good against the slot, and he lines up in the slot over 70% of the time. So I put in 41.5, which is what I'm seeing for his live receiving yards, and he currently has 0 receiving yards, if I have that correct. Yeah, 4 receiving yards. So if I put that in for his 4 receiving yards, we're showing 55.5% under on that 41.5. So again, another spot where we're just in a 50-50 situation. And if the Jaguars are going to come back, I think Christian Kirk is going to be key. So I was hopefully going to take is over, but we're not showing any value on the over there either.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask you with how your model works is, like, for example, the volume and the targets. Like, in this first half, even though the Chargers are very effective at stopping slot receivers, Christian Kirk has 6 targets in the first half. That's actually second behind Zay Jones, who has 8.
Right.
So in that instance, if you're going to have to rely on your stars to an attempt to make a comeback, there could be the potential where maybe Kirk is key to that comeback.
Exactly.
But then I'm wondering, if you're looking at Kirk from a comeback standpoint, you would probably be better served just to look at a Jaguars spread instead, if they're likely keeping it that close, if they're going to be using Kirk in that instance.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very weird one. A lot of times when we do these Bet What Happens live shows, we have a pretty competitive game. This is one of the few ones this year where it's already been sort of a blowout by halftime, and it makes it this little bit of a weird guessing game on, like, will the starters get pulled? When will they get pulled? Maybe they don't get pulled. Maybe the game closes back up. And so it becomes this really interesting guessing game. So that's where I stick to the model, and I stick to situations where I feel really comfortable with. And that's why I feel, I feel really comfortable with this under on Zay Jones in terms of his receiving yards, because this is a comfortable situation. We know the Jaguars are not going to start with the ball. We know we're already showing value on Zay Jones under. We already know we're fading him anyway, and we already know if this game blows out, maybe they don't even use him, and he's possibly not even the key to this Jaguars offense anyway.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so comfortable taking this in this known spot, whereas dabbling in these unknowns, I think, is great for these long shot touchdown bets, but I don't want to dabble on an unknown, maybe with a starter, because those starters could go either way.
And especially on the Chargers side, where Brandon Staley is a bit of a wild card. We saw him in Week 18 still play his starters, despite the fact there was nothing to gain from that game against the Broncos, and then they lost Mike Williams as a result. So, they could be up like 25-30 in the fourth quarter, and you still see Herbert gunning it to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, exactly. So we have 1 minute until halftime is over. And we did talk about that first drive where we might look at betting Travis Etienne and his over should something happen. So we're definitely going to take a look at that. So let's recap the bets we have right now. So, Gilles, you are on Josh Kelly anytime touchdown for half a unit and Donald Parham anytime touchdown for quarter unit.
This is correct, yeah.
And of course, that fits right with your theme of being the touchdown guy.
Why not?
And I'm on Zay Jones under 49.5 receiving yards as we head into the second half. So again, 27-7 right now. The Los Angeles Chargers are going to start with the ball, and I'm personally looking to maybe back a Travis Etienne over on his rushing yards if Jacksonville is able to hold the Chargers to maybe a quick 3 and out or maybe a 5 and out or 6 and out, something like that.
But no score from the Chargers is basically the main thing that we have
exactly,
to focus
and
on
probably a pretty quick possession too. We wouldn't want it to have them
play,
travel down the field 10 plays and then turn it over and not score, because that just takes all the time off the clock, and then it's throw mode anyway at that point. So we want a quick possession if I'm going to take the Travis Etienne over.
Sounds good to me.
What are you looking for on this first drive for yourself?
Well, I'm just kind of seeing whether or not what Brandon Staley is going to do as far as the way that he uses his personnel. Is he going to play as if it's 0-0, or is he going to play like he's up 20 points? Right. And that is the wild card where sometimes, even when we have a predictive model that Nick is able to do, sometimes Brandon Staley is the type of guy where he says F the model and just starts doing stuff that is completely off kilter, and that is my biggest concern of sometimes wondering. So I'm kind of like you, where it's almost kind of like taking a wait and see and seeing what the Chargers do before we react.
Absolutely. And so during this halftime, Bet365 did have the market move a little bit. It moved even more towards the Chargers in win probability. So instead of 91.8% win probability, they're 92.1% win probability. So that 0.3 win probability difference. So the Chargers are going to start with the ball here, and I'm very curious this first play, what they're going to do. It could be a bit of a giveaway on what their plans are for this half. I do think they'll run, but I'm curious if at least they threaten to have several receivers out there on the field, maybe a tight end as well. Will Parham be out there right off the bat? Will Kelly be out there right off the bat? I think it'll probably be Eckler, so we're just going to have to wait and see there.
Yeah, you know that this is the type of drive where there's just going to be some random shenanigans. And if Justin Herbert throws an interception on this, I am just going to laugh my ass off. It is going to be so good.
Exactly, yeah. So it does look like Austin Eckler is out there to start the second half, which we expected.
Of course, it's still a playoff game. It's not like they're up like 40 points.
Yeah, but actually, Josh Kelly looks like he is getting involved early here. So that's looking good for your anytime touchdown bet. So Josh Kelly, 5 rushes, 13 yards, total rushing yards right now. Maybe we get that anytime touchdown bet on Josh Kelly. So
I think we might see a 3-and-out on this one.
Yeah, we might. We might be seeing that quick 3-and-out. So it's 3rd and 9 right now for the Chargers, and let's keep an eye on where that Travis Etienne prop is. So right now things are still off the board as we await this possession here, and it looks like no 3-and-out there. So not going to bet the Travis Etienne prop. That's kind of what we were waiting for to hope and see. So I think that's going to do it. So we're going to wrap it up there. You're going to go Josh Kelly anytime touchdown, half a unit. I'm taking Parham, or you're taking also Parham for a quarter unit, and I am taking Zay Jones under 49.5 receiving yards for Bet What Happens Live. I don't think we'll go 3 for 3 because I don't think both of those guys are going to get a touchdown. But as long as one of them hits, that's what we want, right? We want one of them, and there's always the chance to score.
Well, at those odds, you're just hoping that you get one, and then you can just walk away laughing.
Yeah, so that'll do it for this edition of Bet What Happens Live. Remember, we will be back tomorrow with not only 3 Bet What Happens Live for every single game this weekend, 3 tomorrow, but also we have the Action Network Power Hour presented by Bet365. It'll have Convince Me, The Touchdown Show.
That's right.
And 3 more Bet What Happens Live. Thank you for joining us, and good luck with your bets, everyone.